It's 3 o'clock, so welcome. First off, welcome everybody. Thank you for attending. The slides are in the chat box to the right-hand side. So if you'd like to download those, and what I think I'll do, I'll give you 60 seconds or so to download those slides, and then we can get started. There's a couple of you as well that say have had problems in the past with regards to registering for these events. Not sure why that is. However, if you have any problems, please don't hesitate to send an email to webinars@bimrec.com. With that said, right, okay. Well, I'd like to first off say thank you to everybody for attending today. It's great to see so many people at various levels throughout their BIM journey. We have lecturers, students, clients, candidates, BIM professionals joining us, which is great. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Barie Hasib. I'm the Managing Director of BIM Rec. We're an essential BIM recruitment partner for candidates and clients looking to really get to grips with BIM and win with BIM. We're really passionate about helping organisations, individuals learn about, adopt and promote BIM, helping you overcome obstacles and challenges throughout your BIM journey. I'm joined today by Mervyn Richards, OBE, for Services to BIM. Mervyn is a board director and a visiting professor to the University of Reading. As I've said, for those of you who do have questions, please do not hesitate to put them in the chat box to the right-hand side. For future webinars, please register with bimrec.com/BIM-webinars or join our LinkedIn group, which is bimrec.com/LIG. With that said, over to you, Mervyn.
Okay, welcome everybody. Please, you could make the event today. I'll just adjust the screen. It keeps knocking itself out as we go through. As Barie has said, my name is Mervyn Richards, OBE. And a visiting professor at University of Reading. I've been involved in the use of these technologies for, let's say, 40 plus years, and have during that period spent time looking and using most of the software technologies that are available today. One of the things that we've had to develop around those is, on their own, they didn't seem to do what we wanted, and so we had to develop a lot of standards, methods and procedures to enable us to get the best out of this. And that really is the fundamental background of the presentation today. So let's look at, I've titled this A Year in with 1192. It's actually a 4-year journey. We get back to it. You heard what I was saying. I don't think you missed anything on the slides. This is entitled A Year with BS1192. Although it's been running for 4 years, as I say, it's been quite an interesting 4 years, and certainly the last 12 months, I think, is really what we need to concentrate on. So what is the background of all of this? There is a reason why the government is doing all of this. There is a reason why we moved to BS1192 and all of the documents that come under that 1192 series. Part of the problem, not the whole problem, but part of the problem, which is perhaps a little bit easier to visualize, is the fact that most information that we produce and have produced in the past, it's been well researched, we've studied it for 10, 15 years now, is really shown up by this image on the screen. For those that haven't seen it, basically we're taking two pieces of information, one produced by the architect and the other produced by the structural engineer. And all we've done is overlaid them, as we can do quite simply with CAD systems. We used to do this by overlaying the paper drawings and sticking them on the site hut wall and waiting for the sun to shine. This is obviously a much better way of looking at it. So what are we seeing and what is the problem? There are quite a number of different things that's being shown here. One is, why is the structural engineer redrawing everything that the architect has produced? More amusingly, why has the structural engineer drawn the doors? Unless, of course, they somehow magically become structural members. but they're also drawn in different positions, different dimensional base for everything. So we basically have on site, because these two drawings were signed off, suitable for construction, delivered to site, and this was the information that the site is trying to build the project from. So which building does he build? And this is the thing that really brings up this essence of incomplete, incorrect and ambiguous information, because we're now on the telephone trying to find out what it is we're supposed to be producing. So why haven't and why hasn't the teams, or have the teams worked in a collaborative manner and shared their information? Even in the 2D world, we could always reference one another drawings in. If the architect had it right, we could overlay the structural information. We do not have to redraw everything. So this is the start of the problem: incomplete, inaccurate and ambiguous information. We were told by the vendors that, hey, don't worry about that, now we can move into 3D. All of these problems will be solved. And we can start looking at virtual construction models through the 3D environment. Well, once again, this is a slide taken from a live project, taken from the information, not quite signed off for construction, but certainly a long way there. And no prizes if you've managed to see the problems within the model. But basically what it's showing is that people are not referencing their information or producing their information with reference to other people's information in this iterative journey of generating information. Don't worry, it'll all be sorted out by the time we get to the end of design. Well, it isn't. And as you can see, this has moved a little bit further than just signed off at design. We've moved into the contractor's design portion. There is a lot of detail coming into place here. But the drainage engineers, whoever they may be, those brown pipes going down the middle, have managed to put their downpipes in and hit as many objects as they possibly could. What it's telling us that not only aren't people working in context with one another's information, they're not actually checking what they do either. And before anybody says, it's not me, we always check. Research, even during this last week at a number of seminars, by a show of hands, a straw poll, is we'll be lucky if we can get 2 people in 20, 2 people in 30 that have a formal checking process and actually apply it. The industry by and large does not check its information before it shares it, and it builds it out of context. And all this does is require another delivery, another mechanism to come into the industry, and that's the province of the clash detection tool, or the clash detector company that takes all your 3D models on a Friday afternoon, does the clash detection, and then shows the lead designer, lead contractor on a Monday morning the 2.5 million mistakes that have been made in the models, and we all pay them for doing that. In BIM Level 2 and the documentation and methodology that we have written up and published, these things have been tested and been found to work, and it is a clash avoidance process. This should never happen. If it does in the future, basically people aren't following the processes and methodologies that they've agreed to do when they write up their BIM execution plan. So 3D modeling on its own doesn't solve all the problems either. We need a process and methodology that everybody can follow. If we don't, this is basically what happens. We will solve the problems and fix them once we're on site. This actually horrifies me. I cannot believe this. This was actually published on the web by somebody, showing the green member there, by the way, is a structural truss, and whoever the pipers are, they've decided that it doesn't really matter. You can just cut a hole in it. Doesn't really matter. It's not going to fall down, or is it? Possibly. What's even more concerning from a maintenance point of view is the way they've dressed the hole, and just waiting for them to dress the pipe. Are they actually going to weld the two together? You know, there's some really strange practices going on out there, and we have to get rid of them. This should all be sorted out in the virtual world, in the virtual construction model, not waiting till you get to site. So anybody that cries, not on my project, believe me, it is on your project. We are finding this happening on most of the projects that we get involved with. Research actually tells us that 50% of all projects are actually going to come in over price and over time because of these problems and the ambiguity that there is in the data set. So just before we start BIM Level 2, what we have to say is all the processes and methodologies that are in the documentation for BIM Level 2 have, with government funding, all been tested and measured and have shown great value in following them over the past 15-20 years. Over the last 10 years, certainly, government has spent many millions of pounds in research. All of those researchers produce their reports and publish them saying we've solved the problems, look at this, do this, and you'll solve all your problems. By and large, they've been read and put up into the top shelf. And nobody has reacted to the problem itself. So this is another attempt, and furnished by the government. The government said, okay, take all of that documentation out of the shelves, out of the bookshelves, and go out onto projects and show us, put it in place and show us that these processes work, and we will appoint a measuring team, another company, a third-party organization to come in, and we want to make sure that we can measure what the value is and that these processes and methodologies actually work. So this is really the outcome, one or two of those case studies. Keep seeing on websites, show me a case study, shall we do a case study, has anybody got a case study? There are plenty of them, all you've got to do is look for them. If you want to find these, you will find them on the CPIC website, or you can find them on the Constructing Excellence website under the banner of Avanti, hence the logo in the bottom left-hand corner. The team that did all of the work here actually have moved forward. There is a company taking these processes and methodology and providing research and education into the industry. So Endeavour House stands still there, stands up on the left-hand side of the road as you go into the airport. Small project, £10 million project, but £360,000 worth of saving, 9.8 of the project cost, representing 50% of the expected overspend seen on previous buildings. The unique thing about this building is it wasn't a one-off. So nobody can go crying and screaming that you can't do these sorts of case studies because you can't compare them with anything. Well, this was a building that was one of a series of 5. The first building that was put up came in 20–25% over cost and was delivered late. On the second project, they did learn from the first. They managed to reduce the overall cost of the project at tender, but actually came in 20% overpriced and over time in delivery. Putting all the processes in place and the methodologies on the third of these buildings, and these are the processes that have been developed around the Heathrow Express project and Terminal 5. And we're looking at the scalability of the processes. So during this exercise, paid for by the government, we were asked to do a series of different valued projects. Now, these are not all of them, but these are some. So 365,000 saving on that project, 4-week reduction in construction time. For Palace Exchange with cost aids, the project outcomes using the methodology was £3 million saving on the project cost, 10%, 25% reduction in the design iterative cycle, measured by the designers themselves. The contractor's profit margin, Costain was the contractor here, increased from 2% to 4%, 100% increase in profit margin. St Helens and Knowsley Hospital was the biggest of all the case studies that we carried out. And actually ran for too long a period for us to do a final measurement. Although we have had anecdotal information back from the delivery teams on that project, and they were very happy at the success of their delivery and getting it there on cost. Some of the comments that were made from the design team, Ian Cowlard from RW Gregory, as one of the supply chains, says using the SMP and the St Helens project environment, basically the common data environment, significantly reduced the time to access architectural structural information design, ensuring that we obtain the correct reference files in the correct format. And this improved the coordination. So getting rid of all of those clashes. The research has been done, it's all been written up, it's all been made available through the BSI. What actually happened was, as the government has paid for all of this, and as everything was proven, certainly by 2007, the government looked at this work, certainly coming in with a new government, where they realized they didn't have enough money to actually continue building the number of schools, hospitals, etc. that we really needed. that they were actually taken by the idea that if you can reduce the cost by 25%, proven and measured by them, then you basically had a bog-off. You could build 4 hospitals and get one free. Theoretically, well, certainly 4 hospitals and get the 5th one free. The figures at the moment on projects that have been carried out for the government is actually showing a rather interesting percentage, and that is build 7 or pay for 5 and get 7 delivered. So we're actually doing better than the 20% reduction in price. It has now moved on, however, through the government strategy into the idea of upskilling our industry. We need to make the construction industry, the design portion, and particularly the contractor's design portion and the final delivery of projects 25% more efficient. We need to build capacity in the workplace, in the workforce, so that we can go out and win more work, home and abroad. So this is BIM Growth Strategy, economic growth strategy. The government is not being too optimistic either in making the demands, in as much as they've decided to follow the diagram here, produced by Mark Bew and myself in 2008, showing a number of possible levels of development that the industry should go to get themselves ready for the future. Some of the future we know what's coming, some we don't. So we set the target at what is known as level 2. What is level 2? On this diagram, we're looking at the influx or the start of the CAD system. So basically taking 2D drafting systems that more or less replicated what we did on the drawing board. Using those with drawings, lines, arcs and text, we still generated the same errors and the same percentage increases in cost through bad information as we did on the drawing board. Nothing changed with the introduction of the electronic drawing board. We then moved to level 1, where we had this move from 2D drafting to 3D modeling, which by and large was used mainly for visualization, selling the idea, communicating a design. What it didn't have, and what has come out of the work that was paid for by the government, was the preparation of the documents produced by the Construction Project Information Committee through the Avanti program, becoming BS1192-2, adopted by the government to use for the BIM strategy, written in 2011, and since then a number of user guides have been written and published so that people can replicate what we actually did during the Avanti program. That was the foundation. Level 1 was the foundation for moving into level 2, where the technologies by and large seem to be discipline based and sit in their own silos, and there's very little interoperability one with the other. And so the representation under the term BIMs is AIM, is an architectural information model, a SIM is a structural information model, FIM is a facilities information model, building services information model, and a BRIM, heaven forbid, which is a bridge information model. But what we needed to do was to have processes and methodologies where people could work and collaborate together, and also give enough interoperability using other technologies to allow these tools, these single discipline tools, to be used one with the other. And that the methodology there is all defined within PAS1192. So PAS1192 and BS1192-2, generated during the level 1 process, are the foundation and the core of developing the level 2 capability. If we can, certainly starting at 2016, and this has already started, get enough people and enough companies to level 2, then we will have done really well, and that is very much on target. BIM Level 3, which was announced a couple of weeks ago, is a whole new journey, which we are currently trying to define, and we will write it down, and we will produce the guides and the documents to allow us to get that. But as I can say, unless you can do BIM Level 2, there is no shortcut to getting to BIM Level 3. In fact, if you don't understand BIM Level 2, it's going to be really hard to move into BIM Level 3. And that's 5 to 10 years away anyway. So this is the diagram, the wedgie, that really sets what the government wanted to do, and the fact that we're only going to move to level 2. We know it's achievable, it is not a problem. We have used it, we have developed it, we've written the guide, and we've measured it, and it does give those returns that I showed earlier. It saves designers, makes better profits for designers, for contractors, and it gives the client, the employer, a much better outcome, in as much as he's not having to find 25% more cost to complete his project. So BIM Level 2 is achievable. The HM Government Strategy for BIM Level 2 is founded on a series of documents, and in that family of documents we have a number of PSs and PAS publications. For those of you that may not be aware, a British standard is really a methodology that's already in use, which we basically write down and issue it as a British standard, a code of practice. So it's something that's normative, something that everybody is supposed to be doing, or have been doing for quite a while. Not everybody, but quite a large number. A PAS is a publicly available specification. This allows us to add to the British standards as a test, if you like, a platform for learning. So PAS1192, whilst not fully tested, we have tested most of it, we have made it available and we are learning from its implementation. At some time, usually after 12 months, a PAS will be rewritten from the learning and be produced as a BS. As you'll see later on, certainly with the PAS series of documents we have at the moment for BIM Level 2, that may not happen. We may go somewhere else. So the journey to BIM Level 2 is already well underway. If people are waiting for 2016, they don't have to. In fact, there are quite a number of projects that have been let over the last 2 years by government that are already using a BIM Level 2 capability or methodology. Not 100%, but far enough through. For PR purposes, however, we do find that some people say they're already at Level 3, and heaven forbid, I've actually been at seminars where people have said they're at Level 4 and Level 5, whatever they may be. And for PR purposes, why not just say you're at BIM Level 20 anyway? I mean, why stop at Level 4, 5, and 4 and 5? In reality, we're all on a journey to BIM Level 2, and we need to get that underway and get that down as a good foundation before we move on to Level 3. In fact, and the reason why you can't get to Level 2, until all the documentation and tools have been published, it will not be possible to be 100% BIM Level 2 compliant. But it's not necessarily to be 100% compliant by 2016. As I say, if you can do BS1192-07, PAS1192 Part 2, PAS1192 Part 3, then you're well on the way to being at BIM Level 2 compliant, and certainly able to answer the questions being put out by the client in their employer's information requirements. And we hope this webinar will allow you to understand what has been done and the work that is to be done. But be assured that everything that's out there has been tested, it does work, and it does give you good returns. This is not a cost. It is an investment in people, an investment in process, and an investment in methodology to enable us to go out and win work abroad. There are 7 documents and reference material to support the implementation of Level 2. There are others yet to be published, but the following defines what's there at the present. I will mention the ones that we are currently waiting for. All of this documentation is owned by the BSI, and in particular, people ask us who owns it. Then it is a committee known as B555. It's a committee within the BSI group that looks at all construction documentation processes and standards. These are people from industry. They have experience, they have been involved in the development of these standards and methodologies, and they are the people that are being involved in writing them. I place myself in that correct category. I'm part of the BS555 committee. At the moment, there are 7 basic documents that come to this in a moment. They look like this, and there are further documents to be published. You've all heard about the digital plan of work. There is another one on uniclass classification, and there may be another one, we don't know, on tolerances, construction tolerances. There is an ISO out there on construction tolerances, so we're not sure whether we need to actually write another one. But why do we need construction tolerances? It needs to be understood by people building 3D models. in the virtual construction environment, or the virtual design environment, the virtual construction environment, that these buildings are not rigid things sitting in a computer. That's not what we build. The structures we put up out there move for lots of reasons, under load, thermal requirements, etc., etc. Even in the materials shrinking over time. These buildings move around, and we need to understand what the tolerances are to make sure that they're built into the model, and we understand how the building is going to work in the final constructed situation, and make allowances for that in the design process, but also in the construction process. I'll come back to the documents on the left. The documents on the right, I mentioned that there are supporting documents. There are a number that have been produced, particularly by the CIC, the Construction Industry Council, and there are documents on the legal and commercial requirements of these projects, known as the BIM protocol. There are others on the requirements for project management, and one I think is most important of all is the one about the insurers and what the insurers think about the documentation and the processes. Why do I dwell on the insurers? Well, we do get a lot of people telling us that they can't possibly work under the BS1192 or PAS1192 way because their insurers won't let them share their information. Well, I don't know how you come up with a design if we don't share information. But anyway, we went to the insurers because we had a lot of people saying this and asked them, can we use this process? Would you restrict anybody that you insure from using them? And the answer was certainly not. In fact, they like the processes within the PAS1192 in particular and in BS1192-207 because it gives the full audit trail of how information has been developed. There is a full auditable record of who did what, where and when, and responsibility can be apportioned, which is exactly what insurers are looking for. So the argument that I can't share it, my insurers don't like it, is totally untrue. The CIC have done that research work and they have published the document to show you that it is fully supported by the insurance activity. I must hasten to add what it does say in that document, that they only accept projects that are running under the PAS1192 process. If you or any project is deciding to use your own bespoke standards, or indeed any that you've downloaded from the globe through the internet, then you should let your insurer know, and so they can check as to see whether these processes have been fully tested and actually give value and actually de-risk the insurer. If it doesn't, then I'm sure they will adjust their premiums accordingly. So there are a number of fixed documents and there are a number of other reference documents, and there are far more besides these. If you like to go Google, you will find any number of international standards available about BIM, not all related to what we're doing. Some of those around what is known as IRING, etc., it has been implemented in certain industries, mainly in the plant industry. They don't necessarily help us or reference this industry at the moment. There's a lot of work to be done to look at whether some of those international processes should be taken on board and adopted. They all have to be tested before we put them out there, however. So these are, and what's important about all of these, government-funded documents made available free of charge. The industry has always said the government doesn't do enough. The industry has always said that it's the government's responsibility to put more money into the research, etc. They've done it. The documents have been printed and they've decided to pay for them themselves. They are available to anybody that wants to download them from the BIM Task Group website, or indeed from the Barie website, the Barie Academy website, where you will find those documents have all been pulled together and you can download them all in one go. The BIM Task Group website at the moment tends to splatter them around a bit and they're slightly harder to find, but they're all there. For all of those people who are saying, can we be ready by 2016? Well, that is something that I find of interest. Once again, a number of conferences that I presented at recently. I and my partners, certainly through Avanti and through the BRE, all ask the same question. Have you downloaded the documents, of which we usually get about 10 people. We had one yesterday which was about 10 people out of 120. When we asked them to keep their hands up and say, have you actually read them, half the hands went down. So this really is a reflection of where the industry is at the moment. A, it doesn't seem to know that the documents are there. B, it doesn't understand that it's all for free, and they can learn more about BIM if they download them and read them. So when you come to a seminar like this, you'll get far more out of the seminars. And more importantly, I suppose, if they don't read them, they're not going to understand it, they're not going to embed them. There are a lot of people waiting in the wings, as you'll see in a moment, that will be quite happy to replace them and take up the cudgel and take up the offerings from abroad. So what do these documents consist of? There is, first of all, the BIM protocol. This document is published by the CIC, as I've just mentioned, and covers the legal aspects of doing BIM. Everybody is concerned that the contracts will have to change before they can carry out BIM. Too many problems there. This is not the case. All of those problems, the legal considerations, have been taken care of and published in the BIM protocol. I'll hasten to add, once again, that whilst all these documents are out there, there is one or two inconsistencies between them which we are sorting out at the moment, and they will be realigned. The reason is that a lot of documents were published very quickly over a short period of time, as you can see, and they weren't fully aligned. Do not use that misalignment as an excuse not to use them. They are substantially correct, and the processes can be followed and understood. So here are some of the documents. There are 7 in all, possibly 8. There may be more, we don't know. BS1192-2, which is the collaborative production of architectural engineering and construction information, which forms the core and the basis of what you need to do in PAS1192. One of the things required in PAS1192 is that you put together, or the project information manager is responsible for making available a common data environment. You can only put a common data environment together if you read BS1192-2. PAS1192 Part 2 is the specification for information management during the capital delivery phase. This is the project information model, the PIM, which is handed over to the client at the end of phase 6 in the CIC plan of work. PAS1192 Part 3 is the specification for information management during the operational phase of construction projects. Slightly misleading title in as much as it's really talking about how do you get information out of PAS1192 Part 2 at the delivery stage of phase 6 and into the AIM, the asset information model, at the handover point of stage 6. How you then use that information within AIM is still under deliberation. However, it is recommended within PAS1192 Part 3 to look at those operational stages for the FM organisations to follow PAS 55 or ISO 55000, which actually lays down the process as a methodology for asset information. How do we transfer that information? What is the exchange mechanism? Well, one or two questions have been asked about this. What is the exchange mechanism, and should we be using databases instead of spreadsheets as defined in BS1192 Part 4 COBE? Well, it's up to the employer to define in his EIR the means by which information can be delivered, not should be delivered, but can be delivered. These documents suggest that you will or shall deliver the information in an Excel spreadsheet form through COBE. Why have we done this? Mainly because a lot of the government departments receiving the information don't have the level of technology that they require at the moment. They are being educated as well as the industry to make them intelligent clients, or knowledgeable clients, shall we say, and they are starting to put together the technologies that they need to massage, to mine the information. For the moment, the simplest form to deliver it in is COBE. What COBE also gives us is an understanding of what we mean by structured information. And if you look at COBE, you can see the way in which we want information structured, whether it's within a database or not. But COBE at the moment is fulfilling the employer's requirement, and the employer here being the government, for delivery. In the private sector, if the private client, and certainly the contractor as client, is defining the PAS1192 and indeed BIM Level II as its delivery requirement, method of working, they may ask you to deliver it in a database form. So read the EIR to understand that. My apologies for coughing, and I seem to have picked up something during this week, so I hope it's not detracting from the presentation too much. This is the diagram out of PAS1192 Part 2 that really defines what you have to do. The two iconic diagrams, this is one of them. The other one is the CDE, which we will come on to in a moment. However, just to explain to people, this diagram actually is showing two diagrams in one. The green, and everything related to the green, is out of PAS1192-2 Yeah. The blue from CapEx start to OpEx start is in PAS1192 Part 2, and it's the management process of delivery. And everything from OpEx start to CapEx start is actually PAS1192 Part 3. And if you want to put in there ISO 55000. So how does this work? Well, first of all, what we're looking at in the process is that the employer puts together a requirement for work, so the employer's information requirement, which consists of a number of other elements, other information requirements. There is the organizational information requirement, or the OIR. There is the asset information requirement, the AIR, that usually comes from the standing asset, and that is the portion you see between OPEX start and CAPEX start for serial clients. Serial client being the government, who have a lot of assets and a lot of asset databases to maintain. They have information there that will populate the EIR and will also enable them to tell you what sort of information they want delivered in their asset information requirement. So OIR, organizational requirement or operational requirement, the AIR, asset information requirement, are also part of the EIR. And within the EIR, there are a number of plain language questions. This is where the requirement cannot be wholly defined. Then a number of plain language questions, simple questions, will be provided for the tenderers to respond to. So the EIR will be put out for procurement, and a BIM execution plan, which is a document responding to the EIR that tells the client how and what he can deliver and how he will deliver it at the end of the day. We'll also confirm that he is capable, or at least his supply chain is capable, of answering all of the questions, and it also has the capability and competence to do that. So the BEP is a response and answers all of the questions in the EIR. What's a plain language question that may be in there? It may be something quite simple. The example I usually give is extremely stupid, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. The client's requirement may be, I would like a supermarket on one of the Outer Hebrides Islands, and I want 1 million people to come through the door between 11 and 12 o'clock every Saturday morning. The answer to that question would be, I don't think so. It's not going to happen. So the second question from the client may be, where should I build it? And therefore there's a whole train of requirements being set up there in that simple question that once you win the contract, you will have to start answering. Once awarded, and this BEP, by the way, is going to be used as a playing field and as a level playing field, so that the employer has a greater ability to choose from the prospective tenderers the team that he feels is best qualified, capable and competent of delivering his project. So he's looking to see that the project can be delivered before it even starts, before he's even appointed it. Once he's appointed the team, then the supply chain must agree everything that's within the contractual form. They must confirm that what they said of pre-tender, pre-award, they can actually carry out in post-award. And they will then produce their program of work through a series of TIDPs and into a master information document plan that shows the client how many people they've got, what their capability and competence is, and how they're going to deliver this project, not just for design, but right the way through to OPEX delivery. They will also define that they can deliver all of the information that's been required. During mobilization, down the left-hand side there, all of the processes, the technologies, the common data environment, everything will be tested to make sure that it works and can support the process. One little thing here is that the next three arrows, they're disconnected, and it may be that the employer doesn't want to sign off the contract to one group for let's go ahead, there's the information, go ahead, build it and don't come back to me. He will go through a series of what ifs. So during the brief, we got to produce a brief. I want a supermarket on the Outer Hebrides, 1 million people, blah 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 blah. The answer may be at the end of stage one, don't think we can do that, there's not enough people. So the client will ask another question, or where should I build it? And so whoever has been awarded the contract for answering that question during the briefing stage will go out, do a lot of work on the client's behalf, and come back and say, well, we think it would be better built on the edge of some rather larger urban grouping. And if that question is answered, then you move into concept and into definition. And there may be an EIR produced at each of those stages to get you to the end of 3, where the contractor is brought on board, and as you can see, the continuous arrow then says, don't come back to me until you get to the end of stage 6, and I want you to deliver all the information I've asked for. The red dots below, 1, 2, 3, is the answering what the client's requirement was, those plain language questions, and answering them in the formats and delivering the information that was requested in the EIR. So there are a number of gates there, employers' decision points, that says, okay, I've got enough information, move into the next stage, I've got enough information, move to the next stage. And you can see during this process of answering the employer's requirements that the supply chain, the green line, is constantly talking to one another, sharing information, answering questions. And those little arrows going around in circles there show the iterative nature of the delivery of that information. So you are constantly talking, collaborating during those stages. You're not going away and just doing your bit and then handed it over at 2. The total supply chain answers all the questions and is handed over at the end of each stage, but during that stage they will be constantly talking to one another. After OPEX start, we move into the post-operational evaluation, stage 7, where we are still there. The client is still asking questions. Perform to what I requested in my EIR? Does it perform to the brief? And have you carried out your soft landings activity? So the designer and the contractor together are responsible for making sure during the operational evaluation stage that the building performs to the original work. So they're still there. Everybody is still there up to stage 7. And then as information is delivered into the AIM and during its life cycle, the information within the AIM will be constantly updated through maintenance work, through maintenance information changes, or changes to the building through major or minor projects. So the information will be constantly updated. We see a similar process in AIM as we see in PIM through the common data environment, and the means by which we revision, we produce preliminary information, we revision and versioning it, which we'll come to in a moment. There is quite a lot to get through today, so this usually takes a little while to get through. We have another half an hour to complete the rest. I'm trying to answer all the questions, the pre-questions that were asked within the presentation. If I don't answer them all, please write down and ask for the questions to be answered if I haven't done so. So the fundamental requirement for producing information through a collaborative activity, everybody talking to one another, sharing information as early as possible, helping to answer the questions as a team. You need to be able to trust that information that's being shared. So you will find out in the common data environment, not only have we given an environment where you can continuously share information without finger pointing, you can trust the information that's being shared because you as a team will agree the method by which the information will be checked, whether it be the CAD information or whether it be the technical content. This is formed in the SMP, the standards, methods and procedures that you will produce and agree on during the early stages of the project, and certainly in contract form through the BEP. Now we also look at how the owner originator of that information is defined. Something I won't go through here, but what we carry out here is known as the volume strategy, where the originating designer will break down the building or the project into a number of volumes owned by different disciplines. And that is done in conjunction with those disciplines. How much information do you need for your ductwork, for instance? This will be known as a volume, which contains that system. And you will find in PAS1192 the concept of volumes and systems. So it is a three-dimensional space that's owned by a particular discipline, and it is handed over from the design owner to the fabricator installer owner at the end of stage 3. So ownership of information and of each particular subdivided or model, the federated model, has an owner. There are no two owners of the same volume or the same information, and that is all taken care of in the file naming convention in the commendatory environment. One of the other things that's always asked is, I don't want to share my information because people will use it for some reason I don't know that they're going to use it for. So there is within the commendatory environment and a methodology of you can define the suitability for which you are publishing information. So you can actually state how people and what people may do with the information that you are offering them in that reuse requirement. They cannot use it for any other purpose. That is all part of the contractual condition. However, what all of this is about, and also to give people the confidence that any problems that they foresee or they think have occurred can be tracked and traced. We need this highly disciplined audit process that is transparent and controllable, and that is controlled through software that we are going to use or should be used to control the way in which people work through the commendatory environment. So this is people and processes aided and abetted by technology, not the other way around. So what does a commendatory environment look like? Well, this is the commendatory environment. This is the second iconic diagram. I call them iconic because they're easily identified and they all have something peculiar in common, and that is that they all roll anti-clockwise, which is good because a lot of people ask the question, why don't they go clockwise? At least they've noticed something, and hopefully you will remember them by the fact that they do go anti-clockwise. It's also, we understand, a graphical design point that this is a much more positive diagram when you see the entry point moving away to your right. Believe it if you will. Okay, so the way it's made up is work in progress. This is where teams can deliver, the task teams, individual disciplines if you like, can start to generate their information in their own environment using the same standards and methodology for the whole project. And as they reach a point where they wish to share information, it is a non-contractual sharing activity. We move through gate 1, this approval gate. And in that approval gate, you must review, check, and sign off the information suitable for a purpose against the standards, methods, and procedures that you agreed at the beginning of the project, so that other people who are going to reference the information that have shared can be assured that the work has been produced properly and is correct as it could possibly be. Not complete necessarily, but correct. The technical content is also correct. So we do a CAD check, an SMP check, and a technical check. And we make that available in the yellow portion of the shared area. From this position, all the other task teams, the professional design task teams, can reference that information back into their own system. So if it's a 3D model of the architect's requirement, then that could be referenced in by, say, the structural engineer. The structural engineer designs and builds his models for the structural steelwork, and can do, because they're producing them in context, they will make sure that the structural steelwork does not clash with any of the architectural fabric, before they review, check it and sign it off for their sharing. This is the clash avoidance process. You do not just produce information and shove it into shared in the hope that somebody else will clash it. Everybody is responsible for making sure their information sits within the volume that they've been allocated, and it cannot clash with any other discipline's information, a clash avoidance process. And that work in progress to shared and reference back is an iterative process. It is preliminary, so the version or the revision version of that information is preliminary. It is preceded by a P, telling us that it's preliminary. And the numbering system and the versioning system enables us, as it goes through gate 1, to make sure that all of the information that is produced, approved and checked is sequential in nature. There are no gaps in the delivery. If there are a number of what-ifs in one particular revision, then you will use the versioning activity as P1 or P01.1. Point 1 is the version. You may try a number of different options there, point 1, point 2, point 3. Before you publish it into shared, or before you offer it into shared, you will choose which one of those versions you are going to issue at that particular revision, at that particular preliminary revision. So we always have continuity in the information that's delivered. There are in fact 2 revision systems running here. One is with that P on it. The other one is once it reaches a gate, one of the end of stages where we have to publish, and we're non-contractual at the moment, is preliminary. We are now going to publish it and get it authorized by the client for a contractual purpose. Then the information and the revision changes once it's been authorized to C, C1, C2, C3. So sequentially, as we update that information and it's authorized and we publish it, then it has a C revision notification on it. So the P's can be kept running and the C's can be kept running, and they are contiguous or continuous, whichever way you like to put it. Every transaction between work in progress and shared, or work in progress to shared to publish through the client, and you can see the client shared area, the purple section sitting behind the yellow section. There is a private area there for the client to authorize information before it's published. It's also an area where private transactions between the task teams and the client can be carried out. They may be sensitive in nature, but it is where we place information to be authorized or accepted by the client as being a contractual completion and can be made available through the published activity. The archive records all of these transactions for future use. And as it says there, for project history, maintain knowledge and regulatory and legal requirements. In the event of a collapse, we can see what the inputs and outputs were, what decisions were made, and where we apportion responsibility for any particular collapse, or whether it's apportioned to our dear friend above as being an act of God, who knows. But whatever it is, it's within the archive portion. These processes and these methodologies, as I've suggested through our case studies, have shown that we reduce risk for the client. We remove 20% of the project waste, and we have done that over these past projects, and that is why the client, the government, is saying, I want this, please reduce the waste in this process, I want it got rid of, I'm not paying for it. Risk is reduced to the contractor. We've demonstrated that these processes increase their margins by anything up to 100%, and profits for the designer. Although the designers would never tell us the actual reduction in the cost, they did actually tell us that they reduced the resource employed to come up with a design conclusion. Well, that to me spells money. So there's savings, so there's hard money in all of this, as well as the softer issues of collaborating, sharing information, the ease of finding information, etc. Showing you the standards, the methodology. We've looked at some of the processes and methodologies that are there. None of this will work unless everybody is willing to follow the processes. And this term collaboration is fully understood and applied. So collaboration is working to deliver, working together to deliver the required outcome. Collaboration is achieved through agreed processes and procedures. We know how we all work. We know what we've done. We can trust the information. We have an audit trail that allows us to go back if we don't believe that people have carried out their work properly. Collaboration is technology-aided management of those processes and procedures, and collaboration requires a whole through-life understanding of project delivery from inception to handover, beyond and into demolition. It is all about people working together in a way that they've never worked together before. It is a non-adversarial activity, and that's what will make all of this work. If individuals in the supply chain try to take advantage, opportunism, then of course that is not a collective activity, collaborative activity, and it's not going to help the project's delivery. So it's about people as well. What does the technology look like? We've looked at the processes. What does the technology look like? It may not be able to be delivered by a single software solution. It may be a combination of a number of them. And to understand what that needs to look like, we have to understand what we mean by information model. We are not talking about the 3D model produced by certain types of, heaven forbid, BIM software. We are talking about 3D models, graphical representations, however they are produced and with whatever software they are produced. They will be delivered in native format, they will be delivered in an agreed viewable format, and they will be delivered through COBE through IFC. That is the graphical model. COBE is really talking about the non-graphical data. What we have to be careful here is, although it is part of the information model, we have to have an understanding of how much is embedded and managed through the graphical model and how much is produced and generated and developed and manipulated as non-graphical data sitting in a database associated with objects within the model. Why do we need to split these down? Well, there are certain individuals that can produce graphical models, and there are certain individuals within the supply chain that produce non-graphical data, and we must give all of them the ability to access and manipulate the information. We need also to keep the graphical models as light as possible. There's a lot more work going on in the non-graphical area than you think. The 3D model may, at the end of the day, only represent 5% of the total information that needs to be delivered. Non-graphical data will certainly be greater in content than the graphical model itself. But we also need to understand that there's lots of other documentation, whether it be electronic or otherwise, certainly PDFs and things like that. There may also be a lot of documents, printed forms, whatever, that are not yet digital, that we have to deliver, and we have to have a referencing system, usually around the file naming convention, that allows us to notate those and reference them through a database or actually within the COBE file. All of this information, no matter what it is, it may be a photograph, it may be a video explaining how to maintain something, is all part of the information model that we're delivering. So this is all about information models, information management, information delivery. There is no BIM in what we are trying to do. It is all about information. So we have the common data environment really looking after the graphical and indeed the non-graphical representation and the processes that we go through to produce that. And that is supplied at the moment through a file management DMS system, a data management system. I've been very specific. This is a file-based management system at the moment. We are looking and we will be testing other object-based server solutions that will give us the same capability to track, audit our information. That is yet to come. While some people purport that they can do it, there doesn't seem to be any management methods in place to do it. So at the moment we are looking at file-based management systems. We are looking at database and how we manage those databases and how we maintain the links between the graphical model and the databases itself. There are a number of solutions out there and being employed on projects at the moment. But we also need to be able to transmit through that published activity, transmit information contractually to others, to manufacturers, to other suppliers, providers of products, etc. So we still need to talk to one another through some form of electronic transmittal system. contractually, but we also need to have the general chatter within the project so that people can communicate and collaborate with one another. So we need email systems of some sort. So all of this combined is what we see as the common data environment, which may be made up and needs a number of different technologies to be brought together to provide it. It can be done in quite simple ways, which I won't go into now, but there are a number of different ways of doing this. There is work still being carried out by the task group, where we will be looking at what is a common data environment and hopefully publishing some guidance on that in the near future. I mentioned that there were a number of documents, 7, 8, 9. We've had a look at 4, 5 at the moment. The others are PAS1192 Part 5, which is security. There are lots of problems in when we look at information and what's happening to information. And security is a very strange thing. We must be careful that we don't go too far with it. This is a document that's in draft at the moment. We may be a little bit exuberant in the amount of security we're looking for. I'm sure once we've completed we will come out with a practical solution for that. Why do we need security? Well, even putting a beautiful 3D model, particularly when you see some of these things on underground stations being published on the front of magazines, which really show you all of the ingress and access points within that building. This is a great security issue, and we have to refrain from offering these visualizations into these environments. But it covers lots of other things as well. Government soft landings, which is the facilities management briefing document, which starts at the brief level but is also there at the post-occupational evaluation, is currently known as government soft landings, GSL, but is being written into an update of BS8536. What's obviously trying to happen here is that the government really wants to make all of these documents owned as a British standard, not sitting within different industry organisations. And two, that we hope, well, they will be delivered. The early versions of them have been delivered or have been demonstrated, and hopefully they will be available this Easter or certainly straight after. One is known as the BIM Toolkit, which is being produced at the moment, developed by MVS and a number of others, within which sits the digital plan of work. We had lots of problems in doing this work, in as much as we found 40 different plans of work in operation in our industry, and what we needed really was one. So the digital plan of work is an opportunity, a framework, to allow people to define what the different plans of work and what the deliverables are at each of those stages of the plan of work. Uniclass is the classification system that we have been using for quite a number of years. It's based on an ISO. The ISO 12006 Part 2 has recently been updated, so Uniclass needed an overhaul to bring it into line with that document, and at the same time try to align the different tables in the document more closely than they were at the moment, and give us a unified classification for any type of construction project. I just want to mention that while we keep saying BIM, it's building, it is not building. It is all about construction and construction projects. Most of the processes and methodologies that we have put into these documents were devised on and tested in the early days on infrastructure, civil engineering projects. So they've really come from the infrastructure industry and were modified to be used for buildings. Unfortunately, the acronym catches us and throttles us every time. This is about construction. All of these documents are about construction. You will find BIM has been reduced on these documents to only a few. One of them happens to be on the BIM Toolkit. Most of the other documents we have managed to work out the term BIM, although it obviously is still there because it is part of the government BIM strategy. Just try to make sure that everybody understands this is not just about buildings, it is about all forms of construction. Get off my soapbox on that one. It's not enough, however, for us to just keep publishing these things, because they will be dispatched once again to the bookcase, as I suggested earlier. To overcome this, the HSM HMG strategy is to request the use of this documentation and methods as a pre-qualification. You must demonstrate you can use them for all government projects by 2016. As I say, you don't have to wait for 2016. You don't have to ask the question, is it the 1st of January 2016 or the 30th of December 2016? It is by next year. There are a large number of organisations that have already taken, the early adopters, taken the documentation as it's become available, and they have bid on government projects. And there are billions of pounds worth of work that have already been let by the government against the processes and the strategy. And the savings that we're finding on those early adopter projects certainly are as good as 20%, or in some cases are even better. So as we see that this carrot is being ignored by a large number of companies, as I demonstrated, how many of you have downloaded all of these standards, how many of you read them, shows us that while we are moving forward, there are still a lot of other people that are not facing up to what the requirements are, and indeed the future possibility for those companies in a worldwide, in a global context, where we can make better money and help with the rebuilding of our own economy and sustain it. What we need to do with people is to upskill or retrain the people within that supply chain. We should know all of the things we need to know, but we have found, due to this division within our businesses between the CAD operator, BIM operator, and the rest of the team, this division has to be mended, and we need to understand how everybody in the project and in the supply chain work together using these technologies. And to further educate the industry and enhance business performance, what we're looking at is a series of certification seminars and also a number of certification capabilities being offered by different people. The ICE do one, RICS do one, LOF do one, the BRE do one, and others offer accreditation based on past experience. What we're looking at, and certainly with the people I'm working for at the moment, and through the development of another document which is called the Learning Outcomes Framework, the LOF, we can get a level playing field once again on what certification is all about. So all of these agencies will be training and certifying people against the standard, and that is known as the Learning Outcomes Framework. That has been published recently, and hopefully the agencies offering it will all get on board and all be offering different certifications against that process. The BRE has already been doing this for over a year. It is an exam-based education program. There is an accreditation and a certification program there. Visit their website. You will find out quite a bit about it. And just for my own PR work, if you like, now this is a program with the BRE that is being run in partnership with Avanti. Be quite open about that. The Avanti program was funded by the government originally, taken over by myself and Paul Shilcock, and we now run this as an education and research business. The thing about what we're doing is that the courses are being presented by the very people that develop the processes in the first place. So this isn't about interpreting it. You can talk to the people that were actually there, did the work, and produced the information. So BIM Level 2 is the other thing that people are saying. There is a lot of chatter out there saying, well, BIM Level 2 is dead now, the government's not supporting it. This is far from true. BIM Level 2, as always with government-funded processes, are eventually handed back to the industry, and it's up to the industry to take it forward from here on in. There is continued funding for a further year. So during 2015, BIM Level 2 will pass into legacy. That means we need to find an owner who is going to take this on from the industry. There are a number of possible agencies, the BSI, the BRE, the CIC, whatever. What we need to do is find an owner and who will take ownership of the current processes and make sure they're developed with the new learning. But also the owner has to produce a full specification around the LOF so that agencies can go out there and offer the certification. The BSI, however, will retain ownership of the documents themselves, and they will manage the process of updating these with experienced people. So the BS5 committee and its membership, who have been the guardians of all this work and produced the roadmap for development of BIM Level 2 in the first place, are still going to be owning this information and making sure it's carried forward. It's expected that this very experienced group of members, I have to say, continue to serve for quite a number of years yet. But obviously the baton needs to be handed over into the future, and we will be looking for people in the industry that have taken these processes, methodologies to heart and are making them work, to ensure that we have people with the right knowledge and abilities to continue to develop this stuff for quite a number of years to come. To say that BIM Level 2, UK Level 2 is limited to the completion of UK work would be erroneous. The contractor as client, Skanska in particular, seen to be using these processes and methodologies to take or to put together their own supply chains to make sure that they get the right get the right design, get the right delivery through construction, and more importantly, get the best information they can at the end of the day to maintain their projects that they are the developers of. The UK is also seen currently as providing leadership in the development of the strategies and processes for BIM throughout the world, and even the US last year provided and awarded the UK government, certainly through FEATEC, the award for the best adoption of BIM technologies. Much closer to home, what we can see is that the BIM Task Force now has moved into Europe, and Mark Bew and the team there are currently putting together a European task group to enable European organisations to follow our lead. But we need to be there first. We know how to do this, we have the capability and the people to do it. Let's get there first, let's go into Europe, let's go into the rest of the world, make sure that we can win the best proportion of work that we can. So France has already declared, Germany has already declared, we have certain interest from Norway, Sweden. We have interest, strangely enough, from Ethiopia and Lithuania. China is another one that we have quite a lot of discussion and communication with, and also India, Malaysia, Australia, New Zealand. So this is not just about the UK. This is about the global arena and these processes and methodologies being adopted by them. And how can we see that? Well, the global community, the international community, and the ISO committee voted last year for the development of a new ISO 19650, based around the 1192 documentation. That has been agreed by the BSI that we will do it. There are 2 working parties that are already being assembled, and we are now writing. I'm the chair of the working group, the UK working group, and part of the editorial team for the ISO. And it is not us that offered it to them. They came to us saying that we want this, and they need it as a matter of urgency. So they're not waiting, as I said earlier, for some of the PAS documents to become BS codes of practice. They want us to convert them immediately into an international standard. So we will be able to compete in the global marketplace. We will be there with the methods and the knowledge and the capabilities before anybody else. So get on board. Everything's to be won. As I said, there's 2 committees being set up. What we're looking to do is to accelerate the work so that we can complete these in total within an 18-month period. The end of that 18-month period is going to be towards the end of this year. Okay, so we can only take the last year and indeed the whole philosophy and the strategy that the government's put out as a resounding success. The government strategy is there, the hard work of the BS555 committee and its authors, the provision of an educational frameworks, certification and accreditation, the global acceptance of the UK preeminent position in the development of real value in the use of BIM technologies and processes, and to provide a digital foundation for the future. If you can't do level 2, you won't be able to do level 3, whatever that may be, when we finally publish it. Thank you very much for listening. I think I've just about hit by the minute. I said it would be about 1 hour, 14 minutes. So thanks very much indeed. Barie, are there any other questions, as they say?
I think, in all fairness, well, I'll open this up actually. I know I sent you 25 questions prior to the webinar, and that they have been covered, so thank you for those. We do have a lot of thanks for you for presenting.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's always good to get these things out.
Yeah, no, more thank yous coming in as well now, Mervyn. Thank you, Matthew.
Okay.
Yeah. One question actually is, I normally have lots of questions, however, thank you, Mervyn. has clarified everything for me. So brilliant. The question's coming in now. Is the BIM Learning Outcomes Framework publicly available?
Yes, I understood it was published. Have a look on the... I've got a copy of it myself. Well, I was part of the team that produced it, so I would. But I understood it was up on the BIM Task Group website. You may have to search for it.
Fantastic. Okay. Any other questions from anybody at all? From my point, I'd like to say thank you ever so much, Mervyn. It's been a superb presentation. Thank you. It's certainly adding a hell of a lot of value to the industry, so I appreciate it.
Thanks very much indeed.
You're more than welcome. No, thank you. Thank you and happy Easter. Thank you very much. Yeah, lots and lots of thank yous for coming in. So on that note, if we do have any questions for Mervyn or myself, fire them across the webinars at BIMREC, and I'm sure Mervyn won't mind if I forward them across to him. With
no problem.
That said, thank you ever so much, everybody.
Okay, thanks very much, guys. Go and have a good holiday. And I'm sure I'll meet some of you soon. Indeed.
Thank you now.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.